Hi again, everyone. Welcome back. So each session we were planning on having a small part of it dedicated to me presenting a tool of the day, or what we're going to be calling Tech Talks. So just a 5-minute presentation on a tool that is appropriate to that session's theme, which was participation and engagement. But since we didn't have time and there was just so much really great engagement and participation on your behalf, we thought that we would record the Tech Talk today rather than cut the discussion short. So I'm going to be taking 5 minutes or so to talk to you about polling at McGill. So polling at McGill is McGill's student response system that's used campus-wide. In the past, we used clickers. That might ring a bell. We're currently using a software called Turning Point, and in the future, we may be upgrading to a new system, but nonetheless, either way, whatever system or software that's in place is meant to provide students with opportunities for engagement and interaction in live classes. So polling can be used for different reasons. It can have different benefits. It can be used to increase engagement in your class. So rather than having students just passively listen during long periods of time during a lecture, it's a way to have them participate in the lecture, which is sometimes hard to do otherwise, especially in large classes. So it's an opportunity to give all students a voice when you ask them a question. It can also be used with certain active learning strategies to again give students an opportunity to just be more active in their learning and in the classroom rather than just passively listening. And finally, it provides opportunities for feedback. So it informs students on how well they may be grasping concepts that you are presenting, but it also informs you on what students may be struggling with, which gives you the opportunity to work on certain areas that may be difficult or that students may have difficulty with. Some of you may be wondering why you might use polling at McGill over the basic Zoom polling option. So it really depends on what your goal is, but when we compare polling at McGill to Zoom polling, we can see that polling at McGill is just a more sophisticated polling system. Zoom is very limited in terms of question type, so it only provides or allows you to use multiple choice questions, while polling at McGill has a variety of questions, which I'm going to present in a moment. The reporting in Zoom polling is very basic. It's just a basic Excel spreadsheet, while polling at McGill produces more sophisticated reporting and analyses, which include information on performance and participation. Polling integrates with PowerPoint, which allows you to add questions directly into your presentation so that when you progress through your lecture, the questions just appear seamlessly on the screen. And once it's set up, there's no jumping back and forth between windows. This also is something to consider in a live classroom. When we do go back to live classrooms, polling at McGill is set up to be used in a live classroom. While when we're no longer on Zoom, you'll no longer be able to use the Zoom polling feature. And you know, it's not to say that polling at McGill is necessarily better than Zoom polling. Zoom polling does have its time and place, and it's really nice for quick engagement opportunities within a live lecture, but polling at McGill is really more sophisticated and it's more powerful and can be used for different types of engagement and interactions. Polling at McGill allows for the integration of a few different question types. So the most common are listed here, which include multiple choice, short answer, long answer, word clouds, which are quite popular, and hotspot questions. There are also capabilities to compare the results of questions throughout your session. So for example, you may want to ask a question at the start of a class and then ask it again to see if the response changed at a different point in the lecture after you've presented some material. And in addition, you can do what's called a demographic comparison to see how different cohorts in the class may have answered certain questions differently. So how can we use these questions and use polling to improve our teaching and students' learning? So you can first use polling to orient your students, to get to know them, perhaps to have them get to know each other, and get a sense of their prior knowledge on a subject. The most common way instructors use polling is to inform. So you can use polling to inform your students or inform yourself of their learning by giving knowledge checks throughout the lecture. You can also use it as a part of an active learning strategy to increase interaction and collaboration. So for example, you might ask a question, have students respond, and then put them in breakout rooms for further discussion on the topic and the question in smaller groups. And when you bring them back to that main session, you could re-poll the question to see if their responses have changed based on that interactive exercise. And finally, you can use polling to give students an opportunity for reflection, so perhaps midway through a course or at the end of a class as a wrap-up activity. So this is a very basic high-level overview of polling at McGill and how it might be used. At this point, I would have turned the question back to you and asked you if you had any questions or if you potentially had certain experiences, if you've used polling at McGill before, whether good or bad. So if you do have questions, I invite you to contact us at TLS. We would be happy to answer them, happy to give you a consultation on our polling system. And if you do have some experiences with polling, good or bad again, we invite you to fill out the feedback form and share with us what your experiences are. So oftentimes we don't always know what happens in the classroom, so it's always very helpful and beneficial to us to learn more about using these tools when instructors do share with us their experiences. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next session.